cozy corner, guys, where I am going to be talking to you about not just one book but 4 whole books by a man named Miles Hudson. I came across Miles Hudson and he is a local celebrity author. They recently had a festival on the Thursday where you could actually go and meet him and you could go and get his autograph. And unfortunately, to be honest, guys, I just didn't want to take the mingling risk because, as you know, I have a kidney transplant and I have a lowered immune system, so I tend to keep my space-to-space contact rather than face-to-face contact at a bare minimum, you know? at the only things that I actually need, or, you know, as a rare treat every now and again, interspersed with a couple of weeks for the big C in our lives, and that's not cancer, that's COVID. So anyway, let's have a look at his first series, which are his crime thrillers, his crime novels. The Cricketer's Corpse, here it is. I'm going to be honest, I looked at it, I couldn't see the cover, but I thought, well, do you know what, why not? I'll use my seeing AI and I'll have a go. And I read it and it was really rather good. Nice and graphic. If you like your graphic murder series, this is the guide to go to. I like The Cricketer's Corpse, particularly because of the way he has portrayed race relations. Race relations is actually quite a big topic now, as you may well have already guessed. I liked how he was honest and truthful. In the Cricketer's Corpse, there was a lot of talk about doping. Okay, and that's the first thing I should have said. I loved that because it made me feel like I was slotted into Durham, like I was right into Durham again, County Durham, at school, getting at the school, getting past the sports department, the PE department, and listening to my teacher in a big loud voice going, well, they might as well, you know, make cannabis legal. We might as well make it all legal, because a lot of their athletes that they're looking up to, they are already on the stuff. They are taking it by the boatload. And she didn't see anything wrong with that kind of let's do something illegal mentality. You know, she didn't mind it at all, especially when it came to sports and winning sports, okay? That was the first thing. The second thing, the race relations, you know, it's all intertwined. You know, drugs and how people relate to one another, no matter what race, creed or religion you are, has an effect on your life. And it has this effect. And the way in which he dies is fairly imaginative. It really is. But I am not going to be a spoiler. You have to read the book. If you want to know what happens in it, you have to read the book. And I enjoyed the race relation because I thought it was truthful. I thought it was very truthful that a lot of people feel that white women are just that white slag. And that, you know, if you've got a Hindu background or if you've got kind of like that darker skinned Asian persona about you, even though we have dark skinned Asian friends that are nothing like that. Because there is always what's the phrase? There's always an exception to the rules, isn't there? There's always that. And, you know, books are built upon stereotypes. And stereotypes, to be fair, have their root to a degree in truth. And I thought it was a very truthful portrayal. And I myself remember how I perceived my own racial profiling as white lasses tend to go out on a Friday night, get pissed, go home, they don't work as hard, they don't get as educated. And I think it's mainly because a lot of the people around me, who you as a kid perceive of having this, and I quote, I'm going to be honest, foreigner background, Asian background, whatever you want to call it these days, because it's not really foreign, it's been around for years. that they tend to be the ones who are in quite high paid roles. Now, I know that a lot of you are going to groan, or at least some of you are going to groan and say, that's not true, Alex, from my perspective, but we're all individuals. That's my perspective. I felt like I was just slotted back into Durham and the attitudes that surround Durham and places within Durham. The second book, The Kidney Killer, well, boy, did this kind of grab at my heartstrings, because at the end of the day, I have had a kidney transplant. You guys all know I have had a kidney transplant, and if you don't know, you certainly do now. I had a kidney transplant, so I know all of the ins and outs of the legalities of kidneys and the, you know, and been educated on the black market when it comes to kidneys. And in fact, I even now know that there is stem cell research out there that is that they are using to work on actually growing an organ from scratch, like a heart, for example. And I think hearts are going to be the first organs, or possibly the first organs, to be grown and transplanted. Although corneas, I think, might be the first, because they're smaller and therefore possibly cheaper and easier to produce over and over again. But yeah, The Kidney Killer, it came really close to heart. When it took a faith-based turn with this pretend faith grouping maid, this fictitious faith grouping maid, I had an inward groan of, oh, please don't go down that route where it's faith or religion that is to blame for everything. Because it causes problems these days, that whole argument can, well, it always caused a problem, but I'm not saying it's not true that it can end up being quite vicious. But what I will say is that most crime, from working with Restorative Hub, with the police, I have learned that most crime has nothing to do with faith. Faith is a secondary concern. When you commit a crime, you use your faith after you've committed it to make it a viable option for yourself, to make it an okay thing to have done, you know. Most people, believe it or not, steal from people they know than steal from people they don't know. And if you ever find an intruder in your house, most of them, 70% of them, run away. The rest of them get scared and either attack or just stand still, you know, because it's like that fight or flight syndrome. You know, I'm not quite sure what to do. I know I should do something. But yes, The Kidney Killer, the ending, that was a terrific ending. And it is so true to statistics of crime as to why crime really happens. And it was nice to see that a man was, I know I shouldn't say this really, but I felt empowered. When you find out who the real murderer was, I think the feminist brigade should really be feeling empowered. And I shouldn't say it because it kind of ruins the ending. It really does. But seriously, read it. Read it right to the end. And the plot twist, again, like in the first one, just goes straight back round on you. And I thought it was a really good book. Okay. I started reading these books with his future series, 2089. Now, that title made me think 1989. And I think the writer is George Orwell. Might be looking pretty ignorant at the moment, but 2089, 1989, they're all going to be about what exactly? So I read this, and in the first couple of pages I thought this is going to go downhill rapidly, because I don't like books that talk about how bad tech is for the future. I'm just going to put it out there. I don't like it, because I think I'm a blind person and I rely on technology every day of my life. I rely on these AI pieces of tech that these writers are writing about as though they are superhuman intelligent beings that can do things, you know, and can do things you never thought they could, and that they're only ever going to use tech to take over the world and to invade your privacy and your data. And he's kind of like, you know, playing with the, should we be able to invade your data this profoundly, or should we only be sticking to certain amounts of data? And I think it was also, if I'm honest, I think it was also about what right does the individual have to decide how much data should be shared with the community, because that's quite a big topic as well, especially in the blind community. Because when he was talking about it, and he was talking like the only way they could get past security was to close their eyes and pretend to be blind, I had this inward groan, and I thought, oh God, you know, it must be an interesting world. Granted, if you're blind and you're legally obliged to use that tech, because if you're blind and it switches itself off and it doesn't work when you're blind, then what the hell are you supposed to do? I think that's quite fairly truthful to how society actually plays out in the general main, where they think, oh, this is great tech, we'll roll it out, and then we'll go, oh yeah, you can't see, can you? So you're not going to be able to do that, are you? Let's have the discussion after we've made it rather than before we've made it, so that we get a lot of ICT issues and we're having to communicate again with somebody else to get things sorted. Now, that was played out in the back of my head. But the other part of it was, seeing AI is not intelligent. It really is not intelligent. If you're talking about using the Orcam or the Envision glasses, does the individual in front of me, if I'm in a place of work, does the individual in front of me have the right to decide whether I photograph their face and have the storage facility on my Orcam remember it? Should they have that allowance, or should I be allowed to have that information? Because when you're sighted, you're walking around with that information without realising it, you know? But there is an interesting reason why we use security cameras, and it's an important one. Believe it or not, human memory is absolutely rubbish. It really, really is. Normally, humans, when they get asked what someone looks like, they come out with all sorts of different looks, which is why they don't tend to go by what a human being has said about their assailant. They go about what CCTV they get normally, because cameras can't lie unless you've dyed your hair or done something else to make the camera, you know, unless you've adopted the footage. Oh dear, I think, oh, okay. Unless you've adopted the footage, it doesn't work, you know, it works supremely better than a person's photographic memory, because not everybody has a photographic memory but an auditory memory, or, you know, a touch sensation memory base. So anyway, moving that aside and letting you do your own homework as to what an Orcam is, let's have a look at his last book. His last book rescued the whole situation for me, because I thought, finally, somebody talking about how fragile and easy to manipulate tech is, and therefore not that dangerous. The only danger that technology poses is what the humans behind it decide it should do. You know? And in a future world, would we only give this really important tech out to disabled people that kind of need it, like dyslexics and let's say if I'm in a job and I've got an Orcam, could I get the Orcam facial recognition to also recognise, or, you know, computer software in Envision or Seeing AI or Be My Eyes app or an Ira app agent? Could I get any of that to tell me what my deaf colleague is saying to me in British Sign Language? Because imagine a world if we were all wearing those kind of glasses or had little bracelets on us that could translate what someone else was saying, there would be no need to learn languages, would there? Because the computers would do it for us anyway. And besides, we've got a lot to lose when it comes to self-driving cars. You know, so that's the kind of future world we're talking about, where the scientists just seem to be overly pretentious about their own data most of the time, you know? And I kind of resent that, which these books kind of gave me that different perspective, you know? So I was glad to see the second. I think it rescued it a lot. I don't think it's actually as complicated a plot as people think it is. Because all it's really saying is, if footage can be adopted, whoever's in charge of the footage is the person who possibly committed the crime. You know, you're only really going to know who did what by having good judgment on each other and knowing each other space to space rather than face to face. Oh dear, there's those two words again. Okay, so I'm going to explain this vocabulary. Face to face is things like Zoom and things that bring your capability to recognize somebody's face on a screen or over, let's say, a fence because it's your neighbour, out into the open. Whereas face to space is you're so close, you're breathing the same air, you're capable of touching and cuddling and holding hands. That's face to space rather than face to face. And I think that should be our new COVID expressions for 2021 and beyond. You know, I think that's what we should start doing, saying I'm going to meet someone space to space rather than I'm going to meet her face to face. But yes, anyway, back to this book. This book was fantastic. I loved it because it made you question who really should have the right to handle data and who really, you know, what can happen or what could happen if people had different intentions. You kind of wonder whether you ever knew the truth in your own lives or not, you know, or in their lives. Did they ever know what the truth was, or was there a bit of truth in everything? It's just that it was unable to be seen because different sides had different agendas. And at the end of the day, that's not going to stop whether it's this world or the next world. So I am hoping that you enjoy reading these guys, and please take a look at the first page in 2089 where he tells you where you can actually support his work financially and have a contribution in what he writes. But can you also have a look for the book on Apple Books, because he is actually on Apple Books, and I do genuinely think that you would really enjoy it. So see you later, guys, and bye-bye.